We go.
Special meeting of Washington, Missouri City Council, Wednesday, September 27, 2023, 6 p.m. Bear,
Here.
Briggs,
Here.
Coulter,
Here.
Heidrich,
Here.
Holtmeyer, Patke,
Here.
Reed,
Here.
Wessels.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval and adjustment of agenda.
Need a motion?
Need a motion, I guess.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Packey, second by Coulter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, go ahead, Chair.
Public hearings, sewer rate increase.
So what we'd like to do is go ahead, we've got a little presentation that was given to the Board of Public Works yesterday, and yesterday at their regular meeting yesterday morning. So Kevin's going to walk through that. We'll stop, take any questions that anybody has, but I think it's pretty much self-explanatory of why we're here and what we're proposing tonight. So go ahead, Kevin.
All right, well, evening, council. Thank you for being here tonight, everybody else. As we know, we're here for sewer rate increase. We've gotten to that point where we need to raise rates to maintain our operations at the levels we are right now. We are going to start struggling. We're going to actually be in the negative this year and moving forward. So we need to raise rates. So put a little thing here together, give you guys some more information. And now I had it all set up and it's probably not going to work. Of course not.
Is it on?
It was on. I ran through it. I guess I got it started too soon. Let's see if I can get it to go here. Come on. All right, give me a second. Computer locked up.
Froze up.
Yep.
Hopefully it goes.
There we go.
Hey,
Okay, so this is our, make sure I'm in the right spot here.
You want to go back?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to,
There you go.
there we go, there we go.
One more.
Okay.
There you go.
So here's our current, what we're currently charging, our current rates and our current operations. You can see our current annual revenue, and this is our projected expenditures for 2024's year at 4.1. So that's going to put us in a deficit of 1.6, a little over 1.6 million dollars. To add to that, give you a little bit of information about this year. This year, we're ending up in a negative $1.2 million. Now, of course, there's all kind of fancy mumbo jumbo we can do to kind of make that move, but numbers for numbers, we're in the deficit right now of $1.2 million. So that's why next year's projected at 1.6. We have a lot more expenditures going out. We're going to be taking on all of the slip lining cost and the just the general cost of operations alone. So with that, that's going to raise our deficits, and that brings us to being self-sufficient, self-funded, which is what we're enterprise funds. We should be at that. So we're at a point where we now have to raise rates. We have no choice. So we have different options here. You guys have a sheet in front of you. So the Board of Public Works recommended to raise the rates to $7 a thousand gallons and not mess with the base rate. So we're just raising the rate to $7 to get that offset. That would give us $259,000 in expenditures.
Revenue
Now-
over expenditure.
Over expenditures, revenue over expenditures. So staff got together and we thought, okay, what can we do? Can we get down to as low as we can go and still have expenditures over that would help operations stay in the black? So this is what we came up with. We could do a $6.88 per thousand gallons, which would drop the fee a little bit. If you see at the $7, the rate for the average customer would be $37.58, and going with the 688 would be $37.15. So there's not a big difference by dropping the rate that much.
If I can interject, Kevin. So the reason why the board had 7, at that time, we were not looking at increasing connection fees. That would keep connection fees as they were. So we talked about this, and actually after having a conversation with our counselor, Mr. Piontek, I did, his question was, well, if you are concerned about not only operations, I can understand wanting to go ahead and raise the fees to cover operations, and as Kevin said, keep it as an enterprise fund. But if you also want to go ahead and have a reserve so that when you need to go ahead and expand the plant, you've got some money and you're not in a situation like the city was in 2009 where we had to go ahead and get a bond to approve and go into debt for 20 years because we had nothing in reserve at that time. As a matter of fact, DNR made us raise our rates at that moment.
DNR
in
got
time
involved at that point.
because of that. So the idea is what do you want to do when you have to go ahead and make the expansion? And Kevin will give you those numbers in a slide a little bit later. But the reason why we've looked at this other approach was that we would raise the connection fees, and Kevin's got a slide to go ahead and show that. So as Mark asked the question to me, well, if you're concerned about expansion of the plant and you want to have a reserve for that, why wouldn't you look at the connection fees? Because that's putting it on the backs of new residents that move into your community that are causing the situation for you to expand the plant to begin with. So that's why we took a look also at the connection fees as well, and Kevin's going to do that.
Yeah,
So
we'll get to them in just.
First time that the Board of Public Works, in fairness to them, that they had it, they were just strictly looking at the user fees, and that's the reason why the $7 came up. But only yesterday morning did they see this slideshow where we had chose to reduce it or show that we could reduce it a little bit and then also raise the connection fees. But we'll get to that at a future slide.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but also, that's right, but I also want to let you know that the board yesterday chose to still stick with the $7 instead of the $6.88 because there's not that much of a difference, and one of the board members' comment, and I have to agree with him, is we're just going to continue to kick the can down the road. So, at some point in time, we got to stop doing that, and that could help us if we stayed with the $7. So anyway, so that's a part of it too. So then, so what we did, to go on top of what we're trying to do, we're trying to take on the complete cost of the slip lining through the wastewater department. We annually was getting a $500,000 benefit from the half-cent sales tax. Was going to start this year, plus we were getting $250,000 from the stormwater fund. We're going to take that all in-house now. To do that, we have to raise rates. So this is just kind of a picture of showing this is 2 sections of lines that we slip lined. Showing that this is what we're using the money for, so people could see that. So we also added some other stuff in. We got a really nice video here that I think it would be good for people to see. And I also put our big truck in there, that big old blue guy there, blue and white guy, and the lift station, because we're talking about costs here. So on the collection side, that truck right there, 5 years ago, we paid just a hair under $400,000 for that truck, and it's a workhorse. It works for us every day. I mean, we use it almost every day we're using it. If I had to replace that truck today, it would be just a hair under $1 million for that truck right now. So that there is, it's cost we have to be anticipating down the road because we will have to replace that truck at some time. So we got to be looking down the road for that. That's what our reserves are for, our building funds for. Our Walnut Street lift station there. The little guy on the left there. That lift station pumps half of the sewage in Washington down to the treatment plant. That station right there, if God forbid we'd have to replace it, you're looking at about, engineered estimate, about $1.2 million to replace that. That's just one station, if we had to do anything with it. The internal operations of that station, we've got 3 pumps in there. Our storm pump, our biggest pump, is about $160,000 to replace that if that would go out. So the costs have just gone astronomical to operate a sewer system now. It's just gone crazy, and it's not going to go down. So anyway, that's what that's about. And here's the video. So we'll watch the video. This is what's happening to our lift stations. This is the things we don't talk about, that we never bring up. This is one of the operators digging hand wipes. That is ground up hand wipes that jammed up that grinder pump
Get you a little
and
pointer.
plugged it up and caused that station to overflow. So that's the kind of stuff, and it's about 5 minutes long. I could let you go through the whole thing. I have some other pictures in here to give everybody the idea of what else is out there. So I'll go ahead and stop this one, but it's just a good video to see. This is what it takes, and it takes time, which is money, to dig all of that stuff out of there and get it back in operation. And also what it does is it puts a wear on that pump, and that pump now, that was like a year ago, I think we did all of this, and that pump now is probably due to be replaced because of that. And then, of course, I have to talk about it because it's what it is. A pump like that right now is about $18,000. 2 years ago, it was $5,000. That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So anyway,
You mentioned a little bit ago that slip lining. Mm-hmm. We've been doing that a few years. How many more years of that before we complete it?
okay, we've been doing slip lining in Washington for over 20 years. We've been doing little bits, 125,000 here, 150,000 here. When John came on board, thanks to John, he got very aggressive with it. He found out ways that we could borrow money from the stormwater and other things. And we actually, in the last 2 years, last year was over $500,000 in slip lining. This year, we just did a hair under 500,000. And if we stay this aggressive, we think we can maybe get done somewhere in 5 to 7 years. And the goal is to have the whole town done. So we don't have backups. We don't have hand wipes catching on broken pieces of pipe and building. And I've got a picture of a backup that you guys will see that's strictly hand wipes. So we can't stop being that aggressive. We need to stay that aggressive. We don't want to go backwards. We need to keep moving forward. So that's the importance of slip lining. Also, we have to report to the Department of Natural Resources what we're doing to eliminate I&I and backups, and that is what we use to show that we're doing, 6,000 feet, 10,000 feet, whatever we can do, when we report it at the end of the year. So that bucket that's on the side there, that one right there, which you can point to there, but that's hand wipes that came out of the lift station in that pump before they got to that point in that. That's our nightmare is hand wipes. Hand wipes are flushable, they are not biodegradable, and they do not grind up. They make a mess. So anyway, which is an operational cost. So this manhole right here on the left, my left, your, I guess left too, all that you see in that right there, that is a slug of hand wipes. That is all hand wipes in that line. That manhole right there, I do believe, is 2 blocks from here. So that's what happens when, and we don't know about them. We can't beat every manhole. We wait for a backup. That caused the backup. We had to show up, and that's what caused the backup. So that's the stuff we deal with. The lift station on the other side, maintenance, that we're actually added a tube to our vac truck to clean that out. That's buildup around the bottom of that lift station. We go and clean fairly regularly to keep it flowing and operating the way it needs to be. That's the stuff that these guys that showed up tonight have to go out and deal with on a daily basis. It's a daily basis we deal with this stuff. So anyway, that's some of the reasons why we need to raise rates. I just threw a few other numbers in here, just of our repair costs that we've done previously, what we've got projected coming up, just a few things. We've got another influent pump replacement. That's the treatment plant. That's replacing, or just rebuilding, not even replacing. That is just rebuilding 2 pumps, our influent pumps at the treatment plant. We have a total of 4. It's $101,000 just to rebuild 2 of them to keep them operational. And again, next year I've got the other 2 to do. And it's just going to be a constant rotation because of the wear and tear and the nature of what they're moving. So, and I've got a drying bed down there I have to replace. It's failing. If I don't do some of that drying bed, that's on our sludge processing side. If we don't do some of that drying bed, and what a drying bed is you put the sludge out there, and as the water runs out of it, it has to go back to the treatment plant. It's failing, and it's a good chance that it won't pass a DNR inspection. Then it becomes a whole nother ballgame we're dealing with. So we got to get that done. There's an easement machine there. What the easement machine is that's a machine that will hook to the front of that vac truck there with that hose, the blue hose that's right there where the guys are standing. And then it drags that hose 1,000 feet, and then we can clean lines that are in backyards or down through the creeks, like on 100 and all that. Then we can clean another 600 feet with that. Right now, we can't get to the ones we've got because that's the only thing we have. So that's what the easement machine's for. It's very vital to cleaning sewer lines and keeping the system running. And then SCADA upgrade, that's a yearly thing. We're always upgrading the SCADA system. SCADA system is one of our most important things. We monitor the system, both water and wastewater. We can control it. We can turn pumps on. That's a vital part of the operation of the system too. So
Before you move off this slide, Kevin, so one of the notes that you see up there at the top for the council that doesn't realize, so in the treatment plant that exists today, that bond will be paid off in 2029. And you currently make a little over $1 million payment annually to go ahead and to pay that off. So it is important to go ahead and keep a note that that will be paid off in 2029. We've projected kind of what we anticipate what 2029 will look like, and even at the development rate that we've been going at for the last 5 years, you're anywhere between 2.5% to 3%. You're at 2.2 million gallons a day approximately.
2.4, but yeah, 2.
Well, 2.2 is
It's a 2 point, yeah.
what we've discussed with them. But even at 2.2, 2029, you're at 2.62 million gallons a day. So you're not going to be quite at the 75% or the 80% that where DNR is going to make you, start to look at how you're going to go ahead and add on to that. And we'll have that a cost for what that's going to be here in a slide. But it's just important that it's not going to be, we don't think you're going to be at 75 or 80% in 2029, but you're going to be at 2.62. But then for the next 5 years, if you keep up with the 3% growth, we don't know what that may be, but if you are at 3% growth, then you've got at least 4 or 5 years where you can go ahead, utilize that payment, keep putting that in reserve to help you pay for the expansion of the treatment plant. So that's important to note. That's the reason why that I wanted you to take note of what that payment is that you make every year. So go ahead.
All right, so I guess we're at that. Let's see, did I go too far?
No, go back. You're there.
Yeah, I'm there. Okay, so that is the discussion on the rate increase for the operational side. I mean, that's something that, sitting here today, we're already working in the negative. If we don't do something, we're just going to keep multiplying. So we have to raise rates. It's just deciding what we do. Is it the 6.88 or is it 7.0? Now, like Darren said, Mark brought it up to Darren about connection fees. Great concept. We haven't visited connection fees, I think, for about the same length of time that we haven't done a sewer rate increase.
A little bit less.
A little bit less, but still, it's pretty close. But anyway, we also need to raise our connection fees. Like Darren said, our connection fees will help offset that expansion down the road. So we kind of threw a little bit here from things that we had already had in place. So the shoe factory, the units over here on 2nd Street. If we would have charged any of these other rates that the Water District 1, the 3 oral Fallon fees, that's what we would have gained on that had we had a rate at that point. What we got from that connection for the shoe factory was $3,600. That's the maximum connection fee we charge for any development, anything, is max out at $3,000.
If I could, so your rate is based upon, you have a base rate at $900, and then what they do is they look at acreage at $900 per acre, and they prorate that based upon the acreage of the lot that you're connecting it to. That's what we've been doing for, I think it was way prior to 2014. That was the last time we looked at the rate, is July 7th, 2014. That's why that date's on there. But you have a maximum, as Kevin said, $3,600. If you looked at these other, I asked Kevin and his staff to go ahead and look at what are the other fees that you get associated with. You can see Water District number 1 is the district just to the south of us. Water District number 3 is just to the east of us. So all around us, those fees are almost double what we charge. We liked O'Fallon. We looked at that because of the fact that it's got a simpler formula. It's based on bedrooms rather than acreage, And so, and we've got a proposal of how we do it. But it is important. And then on the right-hand column, you see that's the difference in the fees which you have for just a single-family home. And so that's what you're looking at with the difference of what we could do. And in 2023, we received $81,000 in connection fees. Go ahead, next.
Okay, so this is what we're proposing. This is O'Fallon structure, which is a very simple structure to follow. It uses the meter size, and then it does calculations off of When you go to multi-units, it does calculations off of the units, and then some calculations, as you can see on there. I'm not going to kind of walk them. You can read what they are. But this to me is, I think to staff, is a very, very comfortable rate structure to use. What we did do, though, was, you can see it there, we took O'Fallon's and we reduced their rate by 20%. What they charged, we reduced it by 20%. It was just a number we picked just because we're not O'Fallon, we're Washington. We're not as, we don't have the same conditions that they have over there, but yet we still have to do something to, gain our revenue. So, I like to look at us as, we can look around, but we're still Washington. We have to do what Washington needs to do and not what everybody else is doing. So this is what we're kind of proposing, is to go from, using our old rate and how we do it to going just across the board. Most of your homes that are being built now are either 3/4 inch meters or 1 inch meters. So there would be a $2,000 connection fee on that for a residential home. As you see your bigger meters go up, most of them you run into, that becomes on the business side. And the commercial side, when you start getting up to 1.5 inches and 2 and larger. I think our biggest meter here in Washington is a 6 inch. That's a big, heavy user industrial, company. So, but that's how our structure would go. The multi-units, we would use the calculations that you see on the side, like the apartment complexes. That is the same calculation as O'Fallon's, just with our reduced 20% rate is what it is. So
Theirs starts at 2,500.
yeah, there starts at 25 and moves up from there. So, and then you can see the potential.
Yeah, the bottom number that you have down there is 190,000. That's what you could have had in connection fees last year if you would have had this rate in place, yes.
Yeah. So here is kind of in a nutshell. Right now, we're at 2.4. I know earlier I said 2.2, but after looking at everything, we're sitting at 2.4 right now. And it's been the last 3 months we've been at 2.4, so we're kind of running steady at that. The expansion of the treatment plant, which we're talking about, that's why we're looking at rates and needing to fund it. The expansion would be on these two, on the main treatment plant. There's 2 VLRs that would go right here, which would take it from 4 million, which is 4 cells, to 6 million, which is 6 cells. And then on the back side, the 2 clarifiers in the hole back, I hit the wrong button, sorry about that, guys. In the hole back here, on the back side, that's where another clarifier would go. Just to do that expansion, right now's dollars, it's $12.2 million if we was to build it today. Now, of course, crystal ball would tell us what it would cost us in 29 or 30 or whatever, but if we had to build it today, it would be $12.2 million. So that's what we got to start looking at building reserves up for, is that expansion. We will hit that expansion. It's going to happen. We just need to be prepared for it. I don't want to go through the same thing that happened in 2009 when, DNR had to step in. I don't think we want to go through that again, and we don't need to go through that again. So anyway, and then the other side is, I say we have 2 plants down there. We have our main plant, the vertical loop reactor plant, that takes in all sewage. And then on the other side of the river was our old treatment plant. That's converted over to a sludge processing plant. All the sludge that generates in them 2 clarifiers at the bottom is pumped over to the other plant, and it goes through its digestive purposes, and then everything that's left over is pressed out of a belt press and then hauled out, and we land apply that. They were running 1,500 pounds, I don't know the exact number, right around 15,000 pounds a year of sludge that we spread out in farm fields. That's great. I'm glad we've got that ability, but we also have to look at down the road on that, and it's just going to happen as farms get sold and they turn into subdivisions. We lose farms to spread our sludge because we have a 10-mile area that we can spread sludge from. That's starting to get smaller because farms are starting to be sold and being developed, and so we've got to look at that down the road too. So when that happens and we can't spread that sludge anymore, we're going to have to do something else. So I've got in the budget, in the 10-year budget, a drying system to dry that sludge and make it a Class A. Right now it's a Class B. If we made it a Class A, you could bag it. It would become fertilizer that you could use at your house. But that's down the road. But something we got to always have in mind, that those are the things we got to worry about too, is we're going to start losing areas where we can spread sludge. So, but that's the other side of it. So that's kind of our expansion conversation we have, and it's all rate driven. That's how we have to fund our operations is rate driven.
Kevin, how much room to the east? How many more clarifiers could you put in there? Could you put two more deep in there?
You could put 2 more on that end. The only problem is we don't have anywhere to put the vertical loop reactors, the VLRs. So that's why it only needs
Can't go
3.
north with that?
No, because that is all floodplain. You can't build in that, so you can't, that's the biggest footprint we have right there to build on is right there. So that'll get us up to 6 million. We get up to 6 million, you're talking, it'll be a long time, because eventually Washington's going to get
And you'd be talking about
where
another
it can't, yeah. But it's years down the road.
Right.
That's years down the road, So that's that. That's the discussion about the treatment plant and why we need the user
And I
rates.
apologize, Kevin, I was
and
running
the-
some numbers, but
That's right.
did you talk about the 3%? So if if you're looking at 2029, if we had to, and I was just looking at, based on 2.4, if that's really the number that we got, you're at 2.86 in 2029 when you pay it off. And if you do, like we said earlier, we talked with Cochrane, they're the ones that gave us the number for the 12.2 million to go ahead and do the expansion, whatever, but I asked them, what are you filling in for projects 5 years out, what's inflation rate are you using? They were going by 3% per year, et cetera, so that's why you get to like 15 million by 2029. I think even if you had your rate of 3% growth that I talked about, starting at 2.4 is what Kevin's saying,
Yeah,
that
and
that's what you
that's
got
what we
now.
are, yeah.
You're at 2.86 by the time you get to year 2029. So you're gonna be starting to think about it then, so you might not have until, 34 before, you start thinking about it, if you have that rate of, that growth rate.
Because we also have to take into consideration the fact that anything developed to the south of us, out in the district, that can tie into our gravity line that we put in 8 years ago, 9 years ago, goes all the way out to Country Club Lane. Anything that out there that can go gravity to that must come gravity to Washington. So any developments that are out there that are going now and in the future that can get gravity to that's additional sewer flow that will come to the treatment plant that we don't really know even what's going to be happening out there. But we've got to keep that in mind too, because that will add to the flow, which could shorten that lifespan that we're talking about. We don't know, but I'm sure I can do some tracking down and get a rough idea of what's being built out there now and come back with something, but we just need to keep that in the back of our minds that is happening out there too.
It is more likely that the higher density developments are gonna come to you and annex into you because of the fact of just the regulations that the county has or whatever. But
But
as
it's just
Kevin
some-
said,
it's
we
just
do
something to
have,
think about.
we have a couple of them that we serve out in those areas, so.
Yes, and we'll be getting more, so just something to think about. So the next one is, here's just the rate change summary. So if you look at the operations side of it, the projected annual expenditures over from 23 to 29 fiscal year, 24, 29, we're estimating it being 26 million. Growth in revenue, 27 million. We'd have, if we do the rate, the rate increase, so we'll have a revenue over expenditures of about 1.3. The treatment plant, looking at it, the projected costs in 29 would be 15. There's the numbers, growth, 1.2. We're still going to be in a deficit of 13 million. So the goal is to show that we're trying to gain revenue for the future growth of the plant. We don't have to have it all. It's just we're working towards at least funding some of that, because we're still going to have to go out for a bond. At that point in time, when that does have to happen, that is when we could look at our base rate, because we're not messing with our base rate right now, because we can do it with the user fees. That's when we would look at our base rate, because at that point in time, you'd have to take a bond issue, you'd have to pay it off, so you use that as your rate change, because that's a dedicated number that you have to accomplish. You use that rate for that base rate to change that and put the money for that. So, but anyway, that's down the road too, but things to think about. And at that point in time, I think we're done. I guess the question is now is, What do we want to set the rate at? Do we want it 6.8? Now, Board of Public Works, Brad Mitchell, very, I tell you, I got to give my Board of Public Works is a great board. They're very, very conscious about what goes on. They manage the water and wastewater departments really well. I'm very proud to be working with them. Brad Mitchell brought up a good point, and I have to agree with him. Right now, today, we have one sewer line that's in the creek in Brookview. It collapsed. It's a crossing. It collapsed. To repair that's $100,000. So if we do 6.88 instead of 7, we're going to have $200,000 of over expenditures anticipated. If we have 2 of those, there's what we just tried to gain over expenditures gone, and those can't be budgeted. I can't budget and know that they just happen. Those are the things that you have that reserved for to look at to do. Right now, we don't have that. So their point is he uses I love his analogy, we got to quit kicking the can down the road.
Right.
So, we got to make a decision. I'm backing the board wants 7, I think we need 7, but really it's up to everybody. Do we do 6.8? I'm paying that difference too. I'm like everybody else, I've got to pay it too. I don't like it, but it has to be done, so it's just what we do. It's a decision we got to make.
My fear is that $7 is still kicking the can down the road.
We're all worrying that, but there's a point where we got to stop and say, we can only do,
But like
we
everything,
can only charge so much at one time. Now, but we are going to review this. I'm looking at reviewing this every 3 years.
okay,
We're going to do a CPI, just like we did water on it. So we'll have that escalator on it, and once it starts. But we need to review it to see what are we doing. Are we actually coming out of this, or are we still kicking the can down the road? And then at that point, we'll have to make another decision, a very hard one, but we'll have to make it. This is not done lightly. The Board of Public Works we've been discussing this for a long time. It's been in discussion a long time. It was needed to be done a long time ago. It's just now, thankfully, we have leaders that are willing to do it. Previously, we didn't have so many that was willing to do it, and it got us into this position. So that's where we're at.
So, is there any way, and I know you're gonna say no, so, is there any way that we could, instead of, and I know this should have been done 6, 7 years ago, start out at $550 per thousand, then next year go to 7, then do a 3-year, then the next year do 8.
Well,
People aren't so hit.
I don't want to say no, but
You can do whatever.
this is,
you do as a board wish.
but you got to remember, this
I'm
is
just saying
a
that'll ease
business.
people into it.
We're running a business here, and the enterprise funds are a business.
If I
within
can,
the city.
Kevin, if I can.
Yeah.
The purpose of, like I said, of trying to go ahead and make the sanitary self-sufficient is the fact of when you come back to the voters, when you go at your capital improvement sales tax in 2026, what we're trying to do away with is trying to set for these enterprise funds that they have to go ahead and be reliant upon that tax to pass so that they know. So for example, 500,000, I think you said, comes out of that for for your slip lining. That should be paid for out of your sewer fund. You shouldn't be basing your maintenance of your day-to-day. What are you gonna do if that tax wouldn't pass? Turn off the water? I'm being drastic, but that's not a way to go ahead and run it. You need to go ahead and have it as a fund that's self-supporting itself. On the flip side of this that you do is you keep those additional funds that you have put in the past towards the water tanks, the sewer. You've got that much more money towards your emergency operations, primarily your fire department, for buying them equipment, your parks, and those other entities. So we're trying to get them off of, get Kevin's water and his wastewater self-sufficient to where they're taking care of themselves. I know what you're saying, it's a big hit, I understand that. So that's, how soon we bite that is really up to you guys. We don't have an ordinance in front of you tonight, we wanted you to go ahead, we wanted to have the hearing, get the input, and then, like I said, see how you wanted us to go ahead and move forward. What we had hoped to do would be, is to have an ordinance in front of you at your second meeting in October. And we would probably, just so you know too, proposed that those fees wouldn't start until after January 1st. Especially the connection fees,
Yeah.
because those developments that are out there that have been approved have got time then to go ahead and get
And
the building
adjust,
permits and,
yeah.
and do accordingly. But how much you do at one time, I think we've shown you the need of what you have to do.
Yeah.
It's up to you how soon you want to go ahead and achieve that.
It just seemed like years ago, shortly after I got on the council, we had trash rates that had to increase because we were way behind. So I said, like we do in my trade, we try to do 3 or 5 year contracts, so the contractor can know what's happening next year. If he's bidding a job next year, he knows those rates are gonna be, that's the only reason. It seemed like it worked very well at that time. A lot of people were happy with it. They weren't so, oh my God, like you're hearing, oh, these rates are gonna double. I mean, you're hearing it everywhere, you know, but so is everything else,
I agree. My rate's jumping big time.
right?
So, I mean,
That's the
you
only
know,
reason I
but,
brought up, I just threw a number of 550.
I understand.
Maybe next year, $6.75, maybe the next year, $8. And then you're actually higher than what you were, but it eases somebody into it, because I'm kind of afraid about the $7 myself, you know, but, because I do this stuff every day. I know the cost of stuff. I mean, but
yeah.
I'm just trying to ease for people that are on fixed incomes and.
Your base rate, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but basically your base rate is that if you wanted to increase that, you would have to go to the vote, to the voters.
That's correct.
For approval of that. Your user rate, though, you can go ahead, that's the one that you guys can go ahead and adjust. And so Mark had a question for me today, because people were looking at it and saying, well, wait a second, you're going from 302 to 7 or 302 to 688, you're more than doubling it. And I think that was also, you gave me that, shot me that text or whatever, but you have to figure in the base rate's gonna be there regardless, so.
I mean, is there anybody's thoughts on that? Or does everybody just want to go?
I understand your point, Mark, I do, and I think that it's a good idea, but I think that's another version of kick the can down the road. I don't think we're going to, going from $3 to $7 is a big jump, there's no doubt. But as a household, that means $13 a month.
For the average user. So some will use less. I mean, I've got a number here on what users we have in categories, just to maybe help out a little bit. So under our 1,000 gallon users, we've got 470 users that use less than 1,000 gallons. Usually that is your fixed income people. The ones that, that's the number on that. 1,000 to 3,000, we've got 2,386 customers that are in that range. 3,000 to 5,000, we've got 1,778 customers. Over 5,000, we've got 1,451 customers. So that's our range of users. Now, we have to remember that this rate is charged off of our winter sewer rates. So from November to April, we set our sewer rate for the year. So the user can adjust their sewer charges by adjusting their water consumption, because that's how we charge sewer. So they have the ability to relieve some of that pressure on themselves. Now, that's not a good thing for the operational side, because that's less revenue. However, it is an option for the users, myself included, anybody, to adjust that from November to April, use less water. That sets that sewer rate for the year. So, you know, there isn't a way for them to adjust some of that cost themselves down by adjusting the consumption that they go through at their house. I mean, it's the only way that it can happen. It is adjustable by the user.
So by the numbers you just said, the majority of people use 5,000 gallons or less in a month.
Yeah. Well, the majority of the people use 1,000 to 3,000. That's 2,386. And then the next one in line is the 3,000 to 5,000. That two range group there use the most water, yes.
Right.
So starting from 1,000 to 5,000, yeah.
So that, even at 5,000 gallons a month, you're at $35 at that 7. So you're staying below that.
Yeah.
Shit, my bill was
Want to know what my user is? I'm 10,000 gallons. So I'm a big user, yeah. I got, wife likes, kids, just stuff. But anyway, so there we
I've
are.
been here many times before, and Darren, Mark, we've been through this a couple times before, and it just seems like every time we do this, we're so far behind. it never makes any sense. It's like, why didn't we do this 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Right. I think one of the things, though, just if I can, Jeff, is like, just like what we did with the water rates, we are proposing a CPI escalator in this to be every year. What we haven't done in the past, I will tell you, we'll set the rate, but what we didn't do was put anything. Obviously, these guys that are work for us in our water and wastewater departments or whatever, they're not still working at the same wages that they were back in 2009.
No, they're not.
And so that's the thing that you haven't kept up with regards to that, or at least had that escalator in there to go ahead and keep up.
Well, we've done this with trash, we've done this with water, we've done this, you know.
Water,
it's-
sewer, yeah.
It's not just these guys sitting here, you just saw the cost of a pump. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
everything you buy.
And I had these guys
touch.
come tonight because I'm very proud of my crew. I got one of the
thank
best crews that I can ever ask for. So I want these guys to be here just so that you could see them. Some of you guys may not have seen most of them. This is most of my crew. Believe it or not, we take care of everything with what, 3 more people or something like that. So that's both water and wastewater. So that's
I mean,
over.
This isn't really getting into the rates thing, but John made a believer out of me too on the slip line. So my hopes too were when we complete that, that will also cut down, because that's what was happening.
That's-
We were
that-
getting a whole
Cut down
lot
on
of stuff in-
infiltration, water
Yeah.
infiltration that you.
stuff
Which-
in there
which-
that don't belong there.
Yes, which helps operational, so which then helps gain revenue at the end of the time for that expansion that we're gonna have to, because we are gonna have to expand, it is gonna happen. So everything that we're doing is a path to improve operations and gain what we need at the end, so we're not sitting here again when we build the plant and saying, okay, now, well, now we're taking the base rate from $12.50 to $30 a month. You know, I mean, that's just a number, but that will have to be adjusted. So we're trying to get to that point, at least alleviate some of that down the road. We have to start looking down the road. We've always been looking right in front of us. We need to look down the road.
I would say too, there seemed to be, you mentioned that your commission, your board, that they lean towards the 7.
Yes.
And I see, and, you know, to me, the 12 cents, the 688 to the 7, I'm afraid we're gonna be asking ourselves 5 years from now, hell, if, 12 cents, we should have done it.
We should have, yeah, exactly. So, like I said, I'm behind my board with saying $7, and that's what we go with.
Well, and I also think that, as hard as it is to say, today's money is cheaper than it will be in 3 or 5 years from now. So the more you can generate now, the better you are gonna be at treatment plant update time.
Yep.
No doubt about that.
Yeah.
Again, to Mark's point, to ease the blow, to jump up there, does make sense. But the sooner you can collect more now at the rates we are today, the better we are when we gotta make, 'cause it's inevitable, it's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna
So,
happen, so.
You know, today's world, inflation is tough. We all feel it, but there's no doubt it's better today than it will be in 3 or 5 years from now.
Yeah. So,
You know, if somebody wants to save money, turn the shower off after you get wet and then turn it back on. There's a little, I fixed my toilet. I'm proud of myself.
because toilets are water monsters. They will eat water like nobody can.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, well, that too.
Teenagers and toilets.
Trust me, I know, yeah.
Or
Mayor, are you telling me you stack peas?
you'll,
We don't have to go there, Wayne, we don't have to go there.
TMI.
But you guys, if we do $7 per 1,000 gallons and somebody wants to save money, they can do that. Even though it's a pain in the butt, I like keeping the shower warm just like everybody else does. But it gives our citizens the opportunity to knock their water bill down, even as we're increasing.
Well, if we're looking for some, I'll put it on the table. I'll make a recommendation.
Hold on, it's public.
Oh, it is, that's right.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
you gotta wait.
All right, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kev. Yes, thank you.
Public comments, is that,
Yes, we need
Yes,
to open up the
please.
floor.
anyone would like to speak on this that's here this evening, please feel free. Michael, you don't want to come?
Kevin said it all. As a board member, I'm behind $7. I agree with Mr. Patke. I mean, we're kicking the can down the road and we just gotta bite the bullet now.
Okay. Any more comments, guys? Okay. All right.
No
Can
vote
Mark,
tonight, but you want a recommendation?
It would be helpful if you would, so that we know what the ordinance needs to be when we bring it to you
wanna
on the
start, Mark?
16th.
Yeah. I make a recommendation, 6, 7, and 8 over the next 3 years.
Do we
Is
have,
that a motion?
If I could,
That's a motion.
If I could say something to that? I'm not saying no to it, but how about if staff looks at what it's gonna take to get us out of the negative? That's what we can't keep working in the negative, that's the problem. If we work in the negative, which we are right now and we will be next year, we're gonna be pulling out of reserves to sustain. And we can't operate our business that way. So we gotta remember that when we say we wanna adjust things. Right now, we're working in 1.2 million is what the end of the numbers are this year. So that's what we're in a negative right now, so things have to come out of reserves for that. So, yeah, we gotta look at that. I don't disagree with trying to make it work, but we gotta get to where we're not, so that's just, I just wanna put that out there. We can't keep doing it. So, do what?
It's like 6.5.
I gave it 21, yeah. So we could do 650 and then bump it up, but if we do 650, I guess I better get back. If we do 650 and we take it to revenues over with 21,000, which is what that calculation we did, because Charles, thank you for reminding me of that. If we have anything happen, we're right back in the same spot again. So we're not building a cushion for ourselves if we don't go to where we're at right now, the $7. $7 starts building a cushion for us. Anything else below that's gonna put us into, if we have one thing happen, I can't tell when a pump at Walnut Street lift station is gonna go down. I can't tell if that main pump's gonna go out and we're in the middle of a storm and it fries itself, or lightning strikes the building and something happens. You know, I mean, that's what I think we gotta look at. I mean, I'm all for doing as easy as we can, I really am. I don't like this no more than anybody else does. But we gotta face reality, and reality is, we're already working in a negative. We can't keep doing that. So anyway, that's.
working in the negative with aging infrastructure?
you know, if you go to 8 within 2 years, that fixed income person you're talking, they're gonna get hit a whole lot harder with, because you would
Talking to
continue
Mike,
8.
Mark, if you don't mind talking to Mike.
You
so
would
they can-
continue that 8, then after that, they would get a lot of years of 8, which is gonna hit them a lot harder than the 7s, obviously. So
But maybe that 8 will carry us a few more years too.
Well, yeah, it should,
Oh, I know.
but it'll cost them more.
But I
So
think
when will we raise,
CPI would be your step grade after that too. It wouldn't go immediately to 8, but it would step up after 7. It would, a bigger burden at the beginning, but it would be a step up after that.
what would be your prediction on when we would raise the base rate?
Well, I think
Just
which,
talking.
We got
I mean,
the plan.
I would say, yeah, I would say when you, I mean, one of the times you could go ahead and take a look at it is when you pay off the plan in 2029. And then you could go ahead and take a look at it at that point, see where you're at, how soon you're gonna need to do the expansion, what's been your growth, you'll be able to know that at least by that time. I mean, 3% is, I mean, we've grown quite a bit in the last 5 years, but we've also approved a lot of multifamily type developments. And so, I don't know that we're gonna continue at that pace, but like I said, you can see where you're at in 2029. And that would be when I would suggest, unless something comes up that changes all of this in the next couple of years, I would say that would be when you look at your base rate again.
And probably a bond.
And if you had to do the expansion at that time, or you could wait until you approached it. Maybe you're sitting at 2.6 million gallons in 2029, and you're not at the point yet where you really have to talk that expansion. And again, you're gonna have $1 million extra a year that you can go ahead and put in reserves because you're not paying on that bond anymore. So,
There is a motion on the floor, you guys, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, 6, 7, and 8% for the next 3 years in that order. Do I hear a second?
Are you saying percentage or are you saying dollars?
he's saying dollars from what I
Yes.
understand.
Yeah.
And what happens after the 3 years? Is it the 8 just stay?
Yes, until
Till you
Kevin
revisit it,
comes back and says,
we need more
"Now we
money?
need to go to 10, what have you.
Well, and what about just going with the board proposal?
Well, we gotta address Mark's motion first.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the average user here, just using what we've got in front of us. And if we do 6 instead of 7, it's a difference of $3.57 basically in the user's pocket every month. You're going from $23 to $37 with the proposal for the average user again. Instead of going from $23.17, you'd be going to, I haven't done the math here, but basically you're taking $1 off per month for the average user, and you're taking 30 cents off for the guys under 1,000 gallons. It's, you know, to do that math and figure that out over the next 3 years, I think it might be simpler for everybody involved and to give a little bit of, as we say, it's been out there for a while and we haven't done anything with it, and all we're doing is going into negative, and the last 3 years is negative times 2 or 3. I almost feel like we got to bite the bullet and do it because nothing's getting cheaper, just like we talked about. I don't think there's enough of a relief there, I guess is what I'm saying. 3 to 6 is still doubling for the amount that you have to pay per 1,000 gallons.
Okay. So do we have a second? Evidently not. Any other motions?
I'll make a motion to go with board approval with the CPI added to.
Motion by Patke to approve board proposal.
And
Which is $7 per 1,000 gallons, plus the base rate at $12.50.
I'll second
this
that.
doesn't,
He's throwing in a CPI.
Yes, and the CPI escalator that we discussed.
Okay.
this doesn't include anything to do with connection fees.
No, we can address that next.
Okay.
I haven't had a chance to ask Mark. Do we need to address that in 2 separate ordinances?
Yes.
Okay, so this would just address that.
Okay.
I'll second Jeff's proposal. Mark, I like your idea. My only thing is, if we don't do it now, we don't know what the future's gonna hold. I mean, inflation's still running 3, 4, 5%, depending on whose numbers you use. And I worry that we might be in the same boat when we do 8% in 3 years. We might have to have more by then, if that makes sense. But I think if we just bite the bullet now, I think is the best thing to do.
Okay. Other discussion, you guys? We've got motion and a second on the floor. Okay, let's vote.
Do you want a roll call vote, or you just want to do?
Yeah.
You want a roll call? Okay. Fair?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Nay.
Patke?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Wessels?
Okay.
Pass.
By your vote, motion passes.
So the next item, I guess, that we need to go ahead so we can prepare the ordinance for the October the 16th would be for the connection fees. Kevin, you want to go back to that slide, if you don't mind? We would like, after discussing this, we would like to go with O'Fallon's model, and with at 20% less than what they were charging. And again, this would potentially double your connection fees per year based upon going from your current formula, which is based on acreage, to now the meter size, basically, plus you got that factor in there for multi-unit buildings with no maximum on it.
So those numbers are already at a reduction of 20%?
Based on, a reduction of 20% from O'Fallon's rates.
Right, so that's the 2,000.
Correct, that's what we're proposing.
O'Fallon is 2,500. We're proposing
Correct.
2,000.
Correct.
And what is the fee right now for a 1 inch or smaller?
900.
That would be, let me go back to,
No?
that would be 1,065 is kind of the average.
Well,
of what
that's,
it-
if you're looking at that's a 3/4 inch water meter, Mark, and then that's all based upon square footage of house.
Yeah,
I
we
mean, or
take
square
the-
footage of the lot, I mean.
Yeah,
as
square
far as
footage
that
of lot.
goes. It's an acre calculation, and it's prorated, which I don't know why we got into that. Maybe Mark could shed some light on why it was based on acreage. Do you remember, or why, or?
There was, way back when, there was some residential development going on, and the connection fees at that time did not have a cap. There was so much per unit. And there was a development that was coming in with, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 residential lots. And they were complaining that their connection fees were going to be extraordinarily high. So there was just artificially, somebody made the decision, we're going to cap it at 3 acres.
So there you go.
There was
Which, if it
no other
was the
rhyme or
rate before
reason.
that, you'd really be shocked. Remember that, Jeff?
The what rate?
The rate before this
Oh,
one,
the connection rate, yeah.
it was like only $300 or something, something silly.
So it's around 1,000.
Correct.
Currently, yes.
1,000 to
Currently,
1,100
yes.
for a typical home, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you'd be looking at 2,000 for 1 inch or 3/4 inch.
We're gonna do that a different night, or we're gonna do this now?
Well, we'd like a recommendation from you tonight, so we can prepare the ordinance, and then we can put that in, into the packet.
What, is this going to public hearing also?
It's all,
Connection fees?
it's all part of it.
Okay. Is that a motion, Wayne?
Yes.
Second.
Okay. Dwayne, pardon me, but can you explain your motion?
It's basically the
Staff
stream.
approved.
Follow staff
Staff
approval.
Yes.
Mark,
Okay.
is there, I mean, we haven't discussed this with Kevin, but is there a CPI escalator that we should consider with this or not?
You can, you don't have to, but you can.
Well,
I don't know.
they're 2,500.
Okay.
It's gonna get in some goofy math later, but I
gonna say,
mean,
down
that's
the
the only
road,
problem.
it's gonna
She's,
be a
look at
nightmare.
Mary over there, her eyes are like.
Well, and who calculates it for me in my office when they do it? They're gonna be going, Kevin, what am I doing?
I just asked, just so in case I asked before one of these guys did, that's all. But you can set this and go back and revisit it if you want to at a later date.
CPI on 1/8 of an acre unless it's with.
Yeah,
Let's make sure we revisit this way before we did the last time.
Well,
We're revisiting everything. Like I said, I'm setting a minimum 3-year revisit on everything. Water too. We're gonna be addressing water stuff too yet. We're still working on that too, so.
so to this point, when will this be enacted? January 1?
well, that was the other thing, if you wanted to, I was gonna ask the question and get a consensus from you later, if you wanted us to go ahead and have the ordinance, we can have both of these proposed, but as far as I know, you just got a motion and a second, we haven't voted on this, but if you approve this, and you guys vote in favor of this, we would propose both of these fee changes to take place after January 1st. The ordinance would reflect that on October
That give you time to
16th.
get to people who've already submitted.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the goal, is to give them
That's the goal.
some
So
time.
those guys know and say, hey, you don't have your permit in, and you come in and apply for your connection or whatever. If you don't do it before January 1st, you're gonna pay the new fee structure. Gives them 2.5 months, at least at that point.
Yeah.
So it sounded like you're hesitant about a CPI on the.
Well, I just threw it out there just in case you guys, I just didn't know. But like I said, it's probably a nightmare, probably.
I can only
Do
imagine.
the CPI.
Right.
We don't need
It gets a little,
As
it
long
gets
as
a
we
little.
revisit it.
Yeah, and when we are revisiting.
Wait 10 years. and look
Nope.
again and be behind.
Like I said, I'm looking at a max of 3. You can take me to the board, I'm looking at a 3-year revisit on both, it'll be both water and wastewater.
We don't need a CPI on a connection fee.
There you go.
All right, so motion by Reed, second by Patke to follow staff recommendation.
You want to take a roll call vote?
Bear,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Coulter,
Yes.
Hadrich,
Aye.
Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Wessels.
By your votes, motion passes. Okay.
If I understand, everybody's fine with the January 1st?
Yeah.
Okay, we will have the ordinances prepared as such, and we'll have that on your second meeting in October. So,
Great.
the only other thing, I will not be here at your meeting on Monday. Go
There's
ahead.
no further discussion. Can I have a motion to accept it into the minutes, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Hydrich to accept. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
The only item I had right before is I will not be here at Monday. I'll be at a conference or whatever, but we'll have everybody here to cover. We've got the agenda. I think Sherry sent that out to you earlier today. So, and we do have one item. We'll have, I think Charles and Sal will have one item for you in executive session.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion
I'm
by
sorry, who
Pat,
seconded it?
Hydrich. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you, guys.
Thanks for coming, guys.